So I really have like made it my mission to help women just break out of that and realize like, no matter what your circumstances are, it's, it sounds cliche, but like you can do anything you want in this
Yeah.
world. Like you
Yeah.
really, I busted my ass learning all of it and,
Yeah.
doing all the things. And it took a long time. It wasn't overnight success. Um, I got married while I was at the gas station when I was 21. And because again, it's like that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, like now I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have a husband, and we'll make it work.
Hi, guys. I'm your host, Megan Van Diepender, and this is the Empowerhood Podcast. I am so happy to have you here. Motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So buckle up and enjoy this episode. Well, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so everyone out there listening today, we have Ilissa Gorman here with us, and she's going to tell us all about her journey from the bottom to becoming a mom to creating a crazy successful business and now writing a book. So I'm so excited to hear about this, Ilissa. Why don't you start and tell us a little bit about you? Who is Ilissa?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm the owner of so many things. I so currently I own Ilissa & Co, which is a online marketing company powered by women, and we do everything from strategy to marketing, your actual marketing like social media, and virtual assistant services to keep you up and running. You just kind of take everything off your plate, and keep it all in one house. It's basically kind of like you get a whole marketing department without having to hire a entire marketing department. So,
That
yeah,
sounds great.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So where are you from, Ilissa? Where do you live?
yeah, yeah. So I'm in upstate New York. I'm about 20 minutes north of Albany, just below Saratoga. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's a great area to be in, and I've lived here basically my entire life. So
Okay.
yeah.
And now besides work, you have a daughter or a son?
I do. Yeah, I have a
A
daughter
daughter.
and she just turned 10, which is crazy. I cannot believe where the
Yeah.
past 10 years went. But yeah, it's a great age. So
Yeah. My daughter's 8. So yeah, not 10, but
yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah.
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 It's like, how has it been 8 years? It's so sad.
Yeah.
So you just wrote a new book, Ilissa. So you have your
Did.
company, you have your family, and now you just wrote a new book, Now Leaving Numb. So what is your book
Yeah.
all about? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So a handful of years, I want to say probably about 8 years ago now, I kind of kicked off a huge healing journey, right? And the very beginning of that was a therapist basically telling me, like, I'm an addict. And what she was talking about was that I was in emotional addiction, right? I was using like people to just live on the surface and keep running from everything that had happened to me, all the trauma. And so in kind of learning more about addiction, I realized like I just said, like I was living in this kind of numb state. Like I had friends, but like everything was just very like surface level, right?
Mm.
And so in working through my own healing journey, I kind of created this, I call it the self method. And so now Living Numb walks you through the self method, and it's basically just like rediscovering what's actually important to you instead of living in this like land of shoulds and supposed tos, right? Like we
Mm.
all live in this like, I'm supposed to have a house. I'm supposed to be doing XYZ with my business. And this is what the perfect mom looks like. And so in going through my journey, I just rediscovered like, who is Ilissa? Like, what
Right.
is, the importance of that? And what do I want to be doing with my life? Um, and then doing the steps necessary to make all of that happen.
Yeah.
And in doing all of that, I ended a marriage that wasn't happy, and have come out on the other side of business in this incredible space that I never could have imagined.
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend yesterday, and I had said that, before, I was working so hard, like all the time. And I've almost always worked for myself, minus a stint at a gas station, which we'll get to later. But um, you know, I just was working like I felt like around the clock. I was always on call for somebody and was still making pennies and just could like not grasp like what was happening. And I just kept saying to myself, like, when is it gonna be my turn? Right? Like
Yeah.
I don't understand this. Like I'm
Yeah.
being so nice to people and I'm working hard and like that's how you're supposed to make it, right? And it just was like a huge, huge life overhaul that had to happen. And here we are today. So
Yeah. So how did you get out of that? Now I'm curious because I know a lot
yeah.
of people feel that way. Did this come out
Yeah.
in your book or like did
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
So in my book, we talk about the self method, and self basically stands for it's SELFF, and it's your success vision. Like, what is your vision of success, right?
Mm,
Like, everyone talks about, like, oh, you should be making like multiple six figures and like, all this stuff. Like, personally, I'm not someone who's like extraordinarily motivated by like huge amounts of capital. Like,
mm.
I don't want to be on a yacht. I want to be like at Disney World for a week and not be worried about it, right?
Right.
Um, and so you're a success vision, your empowered views, right? So like that thought leadership aspect, like what do you stand for? What do you want to, bring to this world? What's important to you? Your life goals. That's like your basic kind of life vision, right? Like that bucket list, check them off things that you want to do in this life because like we have one life and now is the
Mm.
time, right? I feel
Yeah.
like so many people wait till like, and I've heard from friends too, like, oh, like when I retire, and I'm like, what in like 30 years? Like
Right.
what if you don't get there?
Yeah.
Like, it's not guaranteed time then either. So it's like do
Yeah.
what you want to be doing now that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Um so you have your life goals, your financial mindset, right? And I think as women this is so important because so many of us just like don't know our value or what price to put on our work or how to work with clients that we love doing what we love. And so that's a huge aspect of it. And
Yeah.
then friction. So like friction is anything in your life or business that is clogging up the process, right? Whether that's like bad relationships or it is, you just don't have the right business systems in place or you're not using the right tools the right way.
Yeah.
Just kind of all those things that again, like it's all those like shoulds and supposed tos, right? Like what is clogging it all up to make it flow better. So
Yeah. I love
yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Now, going back to, where you started from,
yeah.
now, can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you came from?
Yeah, yeah. So I've really always been like an entrepreneur at heart. I was a babysitter and a nanny for years since I was like probably like 11 or 10, which is crazy to me thinking like my daughter is 10 and someone entrusted a child to me. Like
Same. You must be
back in
around
the
the same
day.
age as me. I'm like, who wanted me to watch their children when I was 10? But I
Yeah.
did a good job. I mean, they were
Right.
great.
But it was so funny. We always, my mom used to laugh because like they had Vistaprint back then, but I would have printed like those $10 like business card magnets because I was like, if someone puts my babysitting name on their fridge, like other parents will see it, right?
Yeah.
So I literally did get other clients like that. But so I worked as a nanny and babysitter for a long time. And then when I was starting to go to college, I was like, well, I need like a more regular, just kind of part-time job. I'm going to work at this gas station. And the gas station was, I mean, I don't regret any of it. But it just gave me the perspective of like working for a minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
And, which is what I was doing with babysitting, but just on a different level.
Right.
And I went to a semester of college, decided it wasn't right for me, and was like, well, I'm going to work at this gas station and make the best of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because my wage at the gas station was like $10 an hour. And that's what I made with babysitting. So I was like, well, I'll work my way up at the gas station
Yeah.
because my whole life was like, you're going to go to college or you're going to have to work super freaking hard to make money. Like those are the options available to you. That was what was really drilled into my head because my family wanted me to go to school and thought that was like the right path.
Yeah.
Um, so I worked at the gas station for there was like a split in the middle, but roughly 4 years, and just learned all the things, right? Like the value of customer service
Yeah.
and, just kind of businessy structure in a place like that. But it was, again, like one of those kind of turning points where I'm like, there are so many people, like, I come from a place of privilege, right? Like
Yeah.
my family is, middle class. And it's like there, if you haven't seen outside of what working at a gas station is, right?
Hmm.
Like you wouldn't necessarily think there is anything above that for you, right?
Right.
And I think just economically, it creates so many just mindset problems,
Yeah.
of how do we get out of this? And so I really have like made it my mission to help women, just break out of that and realize, like, no matter what your circumstances are, it sounds cliche, but like you can do anything you want in this
Yeah.
world. Like
Yeah.
you really, I busted my ass learning all of it and,
Yeah.
doing all the things. And it took a long time. It wasn't overnight success. Um, I got married while I was at the gas station when I was 21. And because again, it's like that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, like now I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have a husband, and we'll make it work, right?
Yeah.
And, we got by. Like my husband has a good job, like a solid job, but it's not a huge money maker. And
Yeah.
so we just always had to do what we had to do, and made it work. But everything I have now is my own creation, right?
Right.
There wasn't like
Right.
a magical money fairy that came in and,
Right.
rescued me.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how I know though that like that opportunity is available for people out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It just takes time. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's an incredible story. And I love that you now help other women try to see past those things too. You have an
yeah.
initiative, right? Is that what it's called? Or
Yeah, yeah. So we have this Girl at the Gas Station program, which in 2024 is going to expand, quite a bit. But basically, right now, all of our programs, like I offer classes throughout the year, things like that, workshop services. We always offer a Girl at the Gas Station. We call it the initiative, where if you are in financial aid, you need financial aid, you can just apply, right? You can be
Mhm.
like, hey, I really want to join this program. This is what I have. Or if you don't have anything, just tell me. I don't have anything, but I am trying to make this work, right? And
Right.
I will let you in. Like,
Yeah.
I want people, those were the opportunities that were afforded to myself as well.
Yeah.
But you have to put in the work, right? Like it's
Right.
not something that
Right.
is like, this is going to be fun, right? Like business is fun, but it's not at the
It's
same
not.
time, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like there's not one easy thing about being an entrepreneur, besides that you get to make your own hours and that type
Yeah.
of stuff. And it's yours. It's your creation. But
Yeah.
no, I feel like you're constantly uncomfortable.
Right.
It's really, really hard. It is.
Yes.
But it's
Yeah.
amazing to be able to use your ideas and put them
Yes.
into action.
Yeah.
What was your turning point? Like, so you said you worked at the gas station for 4 years. Did you have
Yeah.
your daughter during that time, or like what happened?
I didn't. So I had left the gas station. There was like some sexual harassment that came up, and I basically was kind of like pushed out, right? And which just is like my life story in general, just trauma after trauma.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
sorry.
but right, so I got pushed out of the gas station. But then I was babysitting a nanny again. And a few years down the road, so I think we were married for maybe 5 years when I had my daughter. I was like 26 when I had my daughter. And at the time, I had, right before I found out I was pregnant, I had started a baby store. And I was like, the most I could do was this small pop up inside of a play space in the area that was like a wall. And I was like, if I can make this work, like amazing, right? It'll prove the
Mm.
concept. I can get it into a bigger place, all of the things. And so that I was at the pop up for, I feel like 4 months. And then I signed a lease for an actual storefront. It was this cute little spot in Saratoga. And right after I signed the lease, we found out I was pregnant. And I was super, super sick. I had HG.
Oh
And
gosh.
basically, yeah, threw up the entire time, like multiple
I have
times
a
a day.
friend that has that. She's had it with both her pregnancies, and I'd never heard
Yeah.
of it before. That's so funny because I think it's pretty rare, right?
Yeah, it's really rare. And I will say, like, my mom had it when she was pregnant with us. So I don't know if it's kind of like a genetics kind of
Yeah.
thing, but yeah, I was very, very sick. And so she was born, and by the time she had turned it's about 4 months was when the lease was up. And I was like, this is not working out, right? Like, I
Yeah.
can't have a newborn. I was making just enough to keep the store afloat,
Yeah.
but not really any like profit. Like, I wasn't taking home a salary by any means.
Yeah.
Um, to, put her in daycare or something like that. So, I was like, okay, we're gonna pivot. And I had just at that point earned my child sleep coach certification.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, this would be great because I can stay at home, build this
Yeah.
business with her. It's flexible. And I can make this work, right? Like, I'm kind of like the queen of the pivot, right? Like, you just have to
Yeah.
know like when to shift a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important as a business owner to have that, right? Like, you can't die
Yeah.
on fried rock. Like, you
Yeah.
can't just like keep making it work when it's not working.
Yep.
Um and know when to make that change. But yeah, I had her, and I think she was about when she was 3-ish, 2.5, 3. I just kind of had my rock bottom moment. We were on a vacation, and I just was like, I felt like I was drowning. Like, I
Yeah.
had nothing, I had no energy left to myself. I just was like completely tapped out, I think, as a mother and a wife and all of it.
Yeah.
And I had contemplated taking my own life,
Oh
and
my
I went
gosh.
for the day by myself and was like, I'm just gonna give it like one more day. And that's kind of my motto right now, right? When you're in a bad spot, you just say like one more day, like, and then you get
Yeah.
through it and you keep going.
Yeah.
But that day was incredible. I just, the whole day to myself, like, completely. And I got back to the vacation house and was like, I just feel like so much better. And I kind of confided in my mom what was going on. And she was like, okay, you're going to take my therapy spot next week. I was like, okay. I guess if we're this far gone, like, one appointment won't hurt, right?
Right.
So I went to the therapy appointment, and that was where the therapist was like, yeah, you're drowning. Like, you're in this addiction to keeping people at arm's length, right? And
Yeah.
it's a coping strategy when you've been abused, right?
Okay.
And it's just like a safe space.
Right.
So yeah, yeah,
So tell me, well, I mean, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, first of all.
yeah,
But
yeah,
so tell me a little bit more about this keeping people at arm's length. Like
yeah.
how so as your therapist is talking you through this and how you're working through this, so you're saying you do this to make sure that you're safe.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
can you kind of give
yeah.
me an
So
example of like what happens?
sure. So it's just like you let people into your life, but not to like the real you, right? You're
Yeah.
like Joan Cleaver, right? You're like, everything is great, everything is
Yeah.
fine, and you just have like almost no emotions.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I was thinking about this in the car today too. I was like, yeah, no, it's safety and comfort because you're like, you lack, like, it's like you lack trust in other people, but also in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, if you just stay that far away, you can't hurt me, I can't get hurt, and it'll be fine, right? Like,
Yeah.
you'll stay right there because when you let people in, you're instantly vulnerable, right?
Right.
In which now I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like, you can take it or leave it, right? Like, this is
Right.
me and this is who I am. And if you don't want to be here, that's okay.
Right.
But at that point, it was just like, yes, like surface level, just stay safe, right?
Okay.
And it's a generational issue too. Abuse is definitely like generational trauma because then when you continue to have these arm's length relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like, you do it with your kids too. And
Right.
that was like a big realization for me, right? Was I was
Yeah.
always like, of course I love my daughter. I would die for my daughter, right?
Yeah.
And but to keep her safe and to keep me safe, it was like, I'll just do what you need, right? Like,
Right.
but you just don't have this like emotional connection.
You're detached.
And
Yeah, you're like emotionally
yes,
detached. Yeah.
yes. And
Wow.
so when that happens, that's what repeats the cycle, right?
Right.
Because like then my daughter learns like, yeah, like my mom loves me, but like it's like okay, right? Like it's not for me, it's just like my needs
Yes.
instead of being this deep connection.
Yeah.
Um and so then, she could carry that on to her life and her children, which puts you more at risk of abuse, right?
Right.
So it was really, really important to me to break that cycle. Obviously
Yeah.
not just for myself, but for her as well.
Yeah.
Um, and continuing that. So yeah.
So you worked through all this in therapy.
So I did the one therapy appointment and
Yeah.
then was like, F this, I'm not going back, right? Like, I don't want to go back to her. Just told me I'm an addict. What? Why am I an addict? I don't understand. So I'm not like a huge, for myself, I'm not a huge therapy person. I
Yeah.
just like to like figure things out.
Yeah.
So for me, I really dove into like, okay, well, like, what's the psychology behind addiction? And like, why does that happen? And like figuring out
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, like because these things happen and like these holes are there and you're trying to fill it and numb out and like, all
Yeah.
these things. And people do it with everything, right? Like we do it with food, we do it
Oh,
with work,
yeah.
we
I mean,
do
I
it.
was gonna say, I feel like the whole world is pretty much emotionally detached.
Yes.
I mean, I
Yeah.
know just the way I was brought up, it's very superficial, like you
Yeah.
said, like, and
Yeah.
even now, it's like I have to really dig to like
Yeah.
talk to my family and be like, no, don't just tell me you're busy. Like, what in the actual heck is going on in your life? Like, and
Right.
it's not about complaining. It's just like having like a real conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's hard.
Exactly.
It's not easy, right? It's like, and especially if
Yeah.
you're brought up that way, like you said, it's like you really have to like be aware of it and push to
Yeah.
make a change.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have
Yeah.
you been able to work through it with your daughter?
Yeah, so I feel like we're very close now, and I'm just like very mindful of it, right? And
Yeah.
like we really try and build in, now we're two family household, so we one my ex and I are extraordinarily co-parenting together, right? And
Yeah.
I
That's
think, I
great.
mean, obviously that was like the right choice for our family, but I'm very, very blessed to have an ex that can co-parent well.
Yeah.
Um, but then, with my daughter, just, it's for us, it's the little moments and the really like, again, those mindful moments of, okay, like Christmas coming up, right? Like we're going to be busy. There's things going on, but like, I know for her, she loves when I go to things for her, right? Like her school stuff is
Yeah.
important to her,
Yeah.
and supporting her in that way. Or, little moments again, like of reading together, or we have breakfast every morning together, like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yep.
It's not always the huge stuff.
Yeah.
So thinking through like what are those connection points,
Yeah.
that we can make and being mindful of those because the time because it flies by.
It
Like
flies. Yeah,
then.
and I think those little moments are so much more important because I feel like,
Yeah.
that's what they remember is those
Yeah.
like daily
Yeah.
moments that
Yeah.
the things that you do together.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
being, not even like doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
huge. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I'm so glad you were
Yeah.
able to work through with that. And I
Yeah.
feel like we're all working through this stuff, right? As parents and
Yes.
like figuring out like what we're bringing with us from our childhood and what we're not.
Yeah.
It's hard. Parenting is hard.
Yes.
So you said, so now you have your marketing business and now you're starting a new venture, a new adventure.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I am just working on my certification in heart healing. So heart healing it's like a trauma healing technique developed by Natasha Bray. And so you basically go on this like journey through your heart to find the person that caused the initial wound, right? And
Hmm.
you heal that relationship. And I've been doing a bunch of test sessions as part of the certification, and the results are mind blowing, right?
Wow.
And I went with this certification because I did my own sessions with one of their practitioners as part of my healing journey, and just found it to be so profound. And, then when I was writing my book, I was like, all of the stuff that I did, right, like digs into that authentic you.
Mm.
But I also felt like, at the end I talked about, being I don't want to say a patient, but like a consumer of heart healing, right? Like I had done
Mm-hmm.
the sessions and
Yep.
how helpful it was. And then, I was like, I do want to work with people more, not just on the surface level, right?
Right.
Like, my company, at the time is, it's business and strategy and marketing, all those things. But I'm so much deeper than that. And I was
Right.
like, how can I add to that and really help women with those core woundings that are holding them back in their business?
Yeah.
So that'll be coming.
Like, so healing of the wound, do you have to actually like contact this trigger person to like talk it out, forgive, or like what is the healing process, I guess, of that?
Yeah. So it's all just done by yourself and with the practitioner. So the practitioner walks you through. You basically go in this kind of deep meditative state, and then you'll find someone in your heart.
Mm.
And then we kind of walk through the process of seeing what needs to happen within that relationship, right?
Okay.
And emotionally kind of uncovering what's going on. So,
Super interesting. That
yeah,
sounds really cool.
yeah,
I can't wait for you
yeah.
to start doing that. I
Yeah.
I can probably come to you, and I already have
Yeah.
like a slew of people I can send your
Yes.
way. We were all dealing with something, right? It's like that's just life.
Yes.
And to be able
Yes.
to resolve that stuff, I'm sure it really
Yeah.
is totally life changing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. So, what's one of your biggest challenges, do you think, Ilissa, that you've come up with like in your lifetime that you've overcome?
Yeah. So, oh gosh. I think it really was just like diving into that authentic self. I think so much
Mm.
of my kind of childhood and upbringing was like just striving to be not, I don't want to say the best, right? I just was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to please other people, right?
Yeah.
And make everyone happy. And and obviously like we all do that on, I'm not saying normal level, right? But like
Yeah.
that's a normal human want and kind of need. Um, but it's just like keeping that in check. So I would say that
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
been huge, right? And it's
Yeah.
always a learning curve too. Like, when you get to different levels in business or in life, you look at, things and you're like, "Oh, I started doing that again." Right? And you just become more
Yeah.
mindful of it. And then you're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, now I can fix it again."
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge one for sure. And I mean, you're right. It's a constant evolution, right? We're never just like made it and like we're there. We have to keep
Right.
working on ourselves. Yeah.
Yes,
And I
yes.
mean, yeah, we're our greatest work, right? We have to continue
Yeah,
to grow. And yeah, that is really hard. I agree with that one. That's a
yeah.
huge one. So leaving them, where can we find it? Is it
Yeah, so it's
Amazon
available on
or
Amazon.
okay.
Or if you go to elissaandco.com, you'll also find the link there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's available for purchase. Um,
Awesome. And is that the best place to find you on your website, or is it social
yes.
media, or what would you
Yeah,
suggest?
yeah. So the website is there. And then social media, mostly Instagram is at Ilissa and Co. So you'll
Okay.
find
Is
us
the
there.
heart healing stuff going to be there too?
It will be, yes. Yep.
Okay. All on
Yep.
the same
Yep.
website?
All together. Yep.
Awesome. Now, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years from now?
Oh gosh. So yeah, the ever loving question, right? I would truly love, like my heart's work has always been helping people, right? And I
Yeah.
really hope that Girl at the Gas Station just like explodes and, is
Yeah.
a really just like helpful program, for a lot of women. And so I see myself completely running that, just healing hearts everywhere I go.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's
And
incredible.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, everyone out there listening, if people like are going through a really stuck moment or feeling down or, mentally can't get past certain things, would you
Yeah.
suggest the Girl at the Gas Station initiative, or what would you say?
Yeah, so I would say like if you feel like you are getting really stuck, just reach out, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
always willing to talk to people and like troubleshoot. and just spend that time. But yeah, if you're mentally feeling stuck, it's probably a heart healing thing. And if you're just like businessy stuck, it's probably a girl at the gas station. just reach out.
You've got both covered. That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, that's amazing. Ilissa, thank you so much. This is incredible. And I can't wait to get your book. I'll find it on Amazon. I'm going to link everything below too,
Awesome.
so everyone can find you.
Great.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
And it was so nice to see you too.
Yeah, you again.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.